And with that, I'll and remind everyone this is a webinar brought to you by the American Planning Association Texas chapter. I'm Travis Liska. I'm the director for the Midwest section of the Texas chapter, and we're bringing you really the first webinar of the year for the Texas chapter to discuss a really urgent and topical issue, federal opportunity zones 2.0, and what we as planners in Texas can do around this important topic. So just some quick announcements on behalf of the Texas chapter. I'm sure many of you have seen the announcement that the state conference will be in Irving this year. It's going to be in October. So mark your calendar, make plans to attend that. But more urgently, this week, the call for planning award nominations closes. So if you've got an excellent plan or know a community that's done a great project, go ahead and head on over to the planning conference website, and there's a link there for the planning awards. We would love to have those nominated. So it's just a quick announcement for all of our APA members. All right, so on to the business of today's meeting. So as I mentioned, I'll be kind of moderating and kicking this off. I'm Travis Liska. I'm program manager at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I work on land use projects as well as transportation projects. And so we're really focused on North Texas. But more broadly speaking, I'm part of the Texas chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm director of the Midwest section, which focuses on the side of the Metroplex, that's Fort Worth and to the west. But more importantly, I've invited a couple of folks who have some expertise on opportunity zones. First, we've got Wes Jensen, who's a financial specialist with the Texas Economic Development and Tourism Office, part of the Office of the Governor, who is managing the submission process for opportunity zones. So Wes supports the implementation of Opportunity Zone 2.0 in his role. He administers also the Texas Enterprise Zone Program and the state's in-state tuition waiver program. He works with local governments, economic development organizations, and private sector partners to advance investment, job creation, and economic opportunities across Texas. And so today he'll be representing that role as he talks about opportunity zones in our state.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. And then also a speaker who's spoken about opportunity zones at our National APA conference, Michael Schenk, who is a planning consultant in York, Pennsylvania. His background includes environmental justice planning. He's previously served as a community engagement specialist for the EJ Lab in the School of Public Health at the University of Maryland and as an EJ scholar with CEEJH. Michael spent a decade as a financial advisor before going into urban planning, and his financial expertise combined with his master's in urban planning from George Washington University allows him to navigate the complex intersection of capital, investment, and community outcomes. And he's dedicated to advancing equitable development and sustainable growth while providing guidance on technical tools to navigate evolving policies like opportunity zones. So those are our two speakers joining us today. And to kick off the conversation, I'm a transportation land use planner, but I want to just give a little bit of my quick intro into why this really matters. So quickly, what are opportunity zones? I'm sure many of you on the call have already kind of dove into this. The news has been out there about them, but for everyone else, a quick overview. They are both a tax incentive program and also a physical location. So the tax incentive program is a big incentive on reducing capital gains taxes for those investors that qualify and invest in qualified opportunity zones. And Wes and Michael can definitely add to this as we go on. But also importantly for us as planners, they are physical locations. Notably, they are census tracts that meet low-income demographic criteria that's set by legislation and then selected by the governors of each state. So those census tracts are discrete locations that we've got a map of that are eligible right now, and then later on to be designated. And of course, both the incentive program and the locations support the goal of spurring economic growth and job creation in those low-income communities. So my perspective on this, I was very familiar with or not very familiar, but involved in the last go-round and kind of learned the process there. So many of you may remember the previous designation of opportunity zones in our state. Well, this is a new opportunity. So 2025, the new legislation has made them pretty much permanent, changed the criteria, changed some of the rules, improved some of the reporting, and also created a rural incentive. So if you were familiar with the last ones, there's been some changes for this round. I'm not going to go into those in depth. They're definitely heavily reported out there in different publications if you want to get into that difference. Today we're going to focus more on the new opportunity. But against the motivation, so the last time we know this really had a big impact on driving multifamily housing investment. There's definitely specific neighborhoods in North Texas that I know had a lot of a benefit from that. If you know you had TIF districts or other incentive programs, they got layered with this. That really helped for that development and communities that were ready to layer those things. Now again, the program back in 2017 was new. Things maybe weren't as ironed out as they are in this new program. So did the tracks that already had primed investment do a little better? Probably. And then the reporting wasn't really clear on the 2017, which is something that's been updated in the latest go round. So that's something to think about going forward with those programs. So these are just some quick resources that I put together comparing the before and after. I'll make my slides available, and I think I can also help make some of our speaker slides available. But that's some perspective on, this really can have a significant development impact. It's had an impact on our region here in North Texas. And for all of you who represent different communities in Texas, it can potentially have a significant impact if you're prepared for it and work with it. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Wes Jensen with the Office of Economic Development and Tourism for Texas. And I would again encourage everyone, drop your questions in the chat as our speakers are presenting. And then once Wes is done, we'll take a pause, see if there are any quick questions he can answer before we move on to Michael. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen and invite Wes to share his.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Travis. Thank you for the introduction. As was told, Wes Jensen, Office of the Governor. I'm in Economic Development Finance, which is a part of Economic Development and Tourism. We'll get into all of that. But Opportunity Zone 2.0, and a little bit more about our office, just because one of our big initiatives for, Opportunity Zone 2.0 is kind of leveraging and stacking other incentives. So I do just want to give a brief overview, really brief, of some of the other kind of stuff that we have going on at the state level that y'all might be able to utilize. But as Travis said, I'm with Economic Development and Tourism. We're all under the Office of the Governor, but we have our Business Community Development, the CHIPS Office, Workforce Investment, Music Office, Travel Texas, Film Commission, just a lot of really cool beneficial sister agencies. So if y'all have any interest in connecting with any of these other agencies, please let me know. Please reach out after this, and I'd be more than happy to, to make those introductions. So us in Economic Development Finance, we have quite a few grant and incentives and credit support programs. The Enterprise Fund, which I'm sure, grant program, I'm sure a lot of y'all are very familiar with. Jetty, which is an interesting new program that also has Opportunity Zone tie-ins. I believe there are requirements that change if you're in the Opportunity Zone. I have less background on Jetty, but if y'all are curious about that, I'd be happy to connect y'all with my good friend Thomas Butterfield, who administers that program. The Enterprise Zone program, which is a sales and use tax rebate program. As Travis said earlier, that is one of my other programs. Very passionate about that. If y'all have any questions there, I'd be more than happy to get into that. My other child, so to speak, the diversification in-state tuition waiver. Effectively, that allows, if y'all have a company that's looking to move from out of state into Texas, we can get them in-state tuition until they become residents. Again, also my program, so if you'd like to speak more about that. The Events Trust Fund, which effectively we work with people having major events that, and within that, the MERP program as well for larger events. I'm a bit in a silo on that one, but I'd be happy to connect y'all with the right people. As well as GURI, which in this instance probably isn't overly applicable. that just helps. We give grants to help bring professors to Texas schools. And then, of course, obviously, our part in the federal Op Zone 2.0 program, which is why we're all gathered here today. We do have our credit support as well, the Texas Small Business Credit Initiative, Micro Business Disaster Recovery Loan Program, IRBs, and we do have a small and rural community success fund coming soon. Again, if y'all have any interest in any of those credit support programs, I'd be more than happy to make those connections. But what we're here to talk about, Op Zone 2.0, and Travis had touched on this briefly. I'll give my highlights as well. We're largely saying the same thing, but it's now, as Travis said, effectively permanent with rolling 10-year redesignations, I suppose we should say. The eligibility requirements did get tighter. I know Travis touched on that. The investor benefits have been simplified. There's now just a standard 5-year deferral and a 10% basis step up for urban tracks. I believe there used to be a 7-year 10%, or excuse me, was it 7-year 15% basis step up, or I forget, but it's now simple. It's just a 5-year deferral, 10% basis step up. Unless you are rural, if you're rural, you get the 5-year deferral, but a 30% basis step up for any capital gains that are invested in a QOZ, or QOF, excuse me, as well as the lower substantial improvement threshold down from 100% to 50%, as well as, they are expanding the reporting requirements, which I think will be really, really beneficial for all of us, because I know post designation, there is a little bit of a data blind spot as to where the money is actually going and what sites are being utilized. I know, at the state level, trying to come up with that data and kind of trying to figure out what worked and what didn't under 1.0 was somewhat difficult. So, we're excited about that. I know at this state we're discussing having our own reporting requirements just to make sure, moving forward, as these are, now permanent and rolling, we continue to, have the most up-to-date information at our disposal, for our benefit and of course just to circulate to you guys. And so the key dates, before we start on that, 25% of all the eligible tracks, each state will be allowed to nominate. That's not on our end. That is federal. And we have our key dates here, but the main one that I think y'all are going to be interested in is this June 28th date. That is our cutoff to receive our nominations from y'all. And, of course, that is rapidly approaching. So this will be the big one. By June 1st, that will open up the window for, governments to submit their tracks to the Treasury. And then, of course, January 1st, 2027 is when these zones do go live. And I may touch on this later, but I do just want to say too, there is a 2-year overlap period with the 1.0 zones. I think that people tend to forget about that. I think there's so much focus on upcoming 2.0 that people kind of lose sight that those 1.0 zones will remain in effect until the end of 2028. And so again, Travis touched on all this, but the eligible tracks were released in the spring. The qualifications to be an eligible tract is median family income less than 70% of your state or metro median family income, or if your poverty rate is greater than 20% and your median family income is less than or equal to 125% of, like I said, your state or metro, that will also qualify you, as well as the elimination of the contiguous tract rule, which effectively allowed an eligible tract to be submitted with a non-eligible tract in tandem. And speaking of, this is kind of something we've been working on recently, but of course, as I'm sure a lot of y'all are aware, early in April, the feds released guidance effectively saying that there could be off-list tract nominations, tracks that qualify that weren't included on the official list that they released in the spring. On those tracks, at the state level, we've determined we are looking for, as well as our nomination packet, for those tracks to be submitted with a 1 to 2 page write-up, effectively saying, hey, this was left off due to the ACH data. However, this does still qualify as a low-income tract, and here's why. And we are kind of leaving exactly what goes into that write-up up to y'all. But what we are looking for y'all to provide is data saying that even though this was left off of that official list, this still fits the spirit of the program. This is an economically disadvantaged tract, and here's how we're proving it. I'd be happy to speak more about that. I think probably a large amount of the questions I get these days falls around that piece. So, I'd be happy to speak more about that later. And so to determine if you're eligible on our website, we do have this mapping tool. You'll notice these do say likely eligible and likely ineligible. This is an old screenshot. These are now based directly off of that list we got from the feds. And the list changed very, very little between our predictive list and our and the official list. So, good job for research team for getting that done. But as you'll see, and again, they're just color coded. If you're eligible or not right off the bat. But we do, when you click on a tract, it breaks down, as you see, the poverty level and the tract median family income, as well as, the median family income of your state or metro. And then it tells you which check you qualify under, if you do qualify. And I do have people often reach out and they ask me, is there any preference to median family income versus, qualifying with the poverty and the median family income? And, do tracks that qualify both ways get preferential treatment? And no, they are all treated the same. Of course, I think naturally areas of higher distress will, tend to score better in the geographic balance distress of the area sector, but those will not innately be given any more preference than any other track that also qualifies. And so our nomination packet, we have it online. Travis, if I could recruit you to air out that link just to make sure everyone has it. They may already, but it's online here. If you Google Governor Office of the Governor Opportunity Zone, our SEO is pretty good. It should be that first link that comes up. And of course, we are asking local EDOs or county judges to submit these, which, of course, that's y'all. So, we would expect y'all to be the ones submitting it. And I know when private parties come to us, asking us to review their nominations, we always point them back to you guys and say, this looks great. We appreciate your interest, but, these really do need to be sent in to us by, local EDOs or county judges. And I said this before, but it is very, very important. We are asking these get submitted no later than June 26th. So again, we do need these in by the end of the month. That is the first Friday before that July 1st deadline that we can begin submitting them, just to give us enough time. I mean, the state of Texas will have so many nominations, and there are so many eligible tracks. I believe there's roughly 2,500 eligible tracks in the state of Texas. So, we do need time on our end to process these and work through them. And I'm sure some of this will apply for some of you, but we do limit the total amount of eligible tracks to be submitted by each count or submitted in each county, regardless if it was nominated by an EDO or a county judge. If you have less than 50, you're welcome to submit all of them to us. If you have between 51 and 100, we'll take 90%. If you're between, excuse me, sorry, y'all. If you're between 101 to 200, we'll take 80%. 201 to 300, obviously 70%. And if you have above 300, which, some will, but that will be somewhat rare, we're asking that you pick your best 60% of them to turn in. And then, we blasted out through all the emails, but this nomination packet is available online. And, if for whatever reason you can't find it, just please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send it to y'all. And so, in that nomination packet, there will be kind of a 10-point scoring system. And the statutory compliance piece, we've touched on that. That's a little bit outdated. I've had this deck since before that guidance came out. We are accepting tracks that aren't on that official list, assuming that they come with backup to demonstrate why it is a low income tract and how it still fits the spirit of the program. And so, throughout the scoring matrix, Local support will be 2 points. That will largely come from what is the local community doing to incentivize investment here? Because, as I'm sure y'all are aware, and we're already thinking about this quite a bit, this doesn't stop when these, zones get nominated and we all pat ourselves on the back and say, great job. This is something we're going to be very active with post award. And so knowing, the goals of y'all's communities, are y'all looking for affordable housing, workforce initiatives? How does OZ 2.0 fit in with y'all's kind of overarching community plan? And then as well as a big section of those 4 points will be if the right project comes along, is the local community, be it a municipality or the county, would they be willing to, throw in local incentives if the right business came along, would you be willing to streamline permitting? Would you be willing to have a 380 in place, performance agreements, what have you? And so that's kind of what we're looking for there. Again, in short, just what is the local community doing to drive investment and, are they willing to support potential opportunity zone investors? And then as well as the other major one is project viability. And this just, this is a projects driven approach to it. As Travis said, obviously the tracks that already had development interest going into OZ 2.0 just tend to be sites where capital is deployed more rapidly. So for project viability, we are looking for things like how shovel ready is the site? Does the infrastructure already exist to get a business in there? And if not, could y'all make that infrastructure happen? And what kind of businesses are the sites set up for? That as well as I know certainly at this point everything is very up in the air and tentative, but any interest y'all could demonstrate in these sites, either outside of opportunity zone, or if people are reaching out and saying, hey, if this was an opportunity zone, we would be really attracted to this site. That's what we're looking for as far as project viability goes. Just, is the site realistic? Is there clear ownership? Is it zoned correctly? Like I said, infrastructure. And so that will be, the other kind of 4 point category is how realistic is it for capital to be deployed here, within the next 24 or 36 months, if not sooner. And then, of course, the geographic balance gets 2 points. Just making sure these aren't all clumped in certain areas, making sure we're properly leveraging those additional rural incentives that have been, set forth by the new, One Big Beautiful Bill Act changes. So we do give also points for rural tracks, as well as, any tracks that are affected by disaster areas. And I know a lot of people have rightfully pointed out that given the winter storms, all of Texas is a disaster area. And we do understand that. And we would just encourage y'all to list any other as well. I mean, on a lot of the submissions we've already seen, they list everything state, federal, or local that is impacting the community. So I would encourage y'all to do that as well. I wouldn't just hang your hat on the winter storm and consider that good enough. But again, it's a 10-point system. We were trying not to be too prescriptive with what we require, just due to the fact that obviously it's very, very difficult to take a one-size-fits-all approach to economic development in a state like Texas, just because, as I'm sure y'all know, Houston area has much, much different needs than, say, far west Texas and everything in between. I mean, we didn't want to say, well, we require this document, and then, maybe that nudges out some smaller communities that might not have access to that. But again, given the rule incentivization, I believe, of, rural tracks, we just want to make sure that this is, accessible to everyone, not just, the larger cities, although certainly we do foresee quite a bit of activity in the larger cities. So just making sure those are balanced, making sure, we're distributing these in a fair way that just really puts these in places that need it, that are likely, to attract capital. Because, quite frankly, if a zone is placed and capital isn't attracted to it, that's kind of a missed opportunity. So I think we all have the goals of just getting these in the best places they can be and then driving as much investment to them, as possible. And so, the benefits of it quickly, and I do always just want to kind of start off by saying, I'm not a tax accountant. I certainly suggest that y'all speak to them, but from a very, very high level, any capital gains you roll over into a qualified opportunity fund are eligible for deferral. You get a basis step up on those, a 10% basis step up after 5 years, as well as the 5 year deferral. As we mentioned earlier, the rule enhancements, standard 5 year deferral, 30% basis step up for rule, and the substantial improvement goes down from 100% to 50%. And Michael might have a kind of a better view on this, but my understanding of that is that only applies to existing buildings on the in the site. And effectively, if you buy the land and there's $1 million worth of infrastructure on it, you would need to effectively double that for urban tracks. And then again, that's down from 100% to 50% for rural tracks. Again, Michael might have better insight on that than me, but that's kind of our very, very high level view from, the governor's office. And then as well as tax-free appreciation on the actual opportunity zone investment itself, if held for 10 years or longer. And then, there is no more forced exit. I believe after a long enough timeline, it is just marked up to fair market value. So, there is no forced exit. You don't have to sell the investment in it to realize those gains. And then, so if a tract doesn't meet the MFI property requirements, just moving on to questions I get all the time, can it still be nominated? Yes. And again, this isn't our process is still very, very new. But we do just ask that come with a page or two of justification as to how it still meets the spirit of the program. Again, without actually being included in that official track list. Do the old zones automatically qualify again? No. And then as previously discussed, there is tighter eligibility criteria. So we will see, tracks that qualified under 2018 not be included in these, the new 2.0. So I do think that I've had meetings with people who were surprised by that. So we do just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. And if a track spans multiple jurisdictions, who may nominate it? Quite frankly, we don't care. At the office of the governor, if the tract somewhat falls in your jurisdiction or is partially in your jurisdiction, we do allow y'all to nominate it. With these total limits on the counties and how many can be submitted, we do expect the municipalities and the counties to work together and kind of be in accord on their approach to this. And so we don't expect to see any infighting. Of course, this is where, letters of support, the additional documentation that we do accept with that nomination packet, that's where that can certainly help to say, hey, look, we have 2 municipalities within our county who would both benefit by this. Here are 2 letters of support from them. That's not required, but that's awesome. We love to see that. And then so how do people make their nominations stand out? We always just say, tell us the best story you can about y'all's tracks. Pitch these tracks to us. We assume there's a reason y'all are excited about them. Helping us understand the value of these tracks and where y'all think y'all could potentially, see benefit from these tracks being nominated as an opportunity zone. That's what we want to see. So, anything y'all can provide us to help us understand why y'all are excited about it, please do. The only required documentation that we are asking for is that nomination packet. However, any relevant information y'all want to provide, we certainly will review. So again, all that's required is that Excel packet. But anything y'all want to, submit, whether it's slide decks or studies that have been done or anything like that, letters of support, as mentioned earlier, we'd be more than happy to take a look at that. And I think here are just our QR codes for both our OpZone 2.0 website as well as our mailing list. I believe my next slide just says any questions. So I'll go ahead and leave this up. And then, if y'all have any questions before Michael takes over, I'd love to field those now.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. We did get one question in the chat, which I think you addressed in your FAQs. The question was, could you discuss nominating tracks that are not classified as eligible? Contiguous tracks, right, are not
Sure.
eligible. But you mentioned there's a method, just so I guess submit a one pager on, hey, we know the demographics, meet the spirit of it. Is that kind of the
Exactly.
process? Yeah.
Exactly. And great question, Ryan. That is exactly what we're looking for. And again, we're not saying like we need these tracks to qualify with this other census data, because again, one size fits all approach to Texas economic development just is very, very difficult. We just ask that y'all prepare a page. Demographic data would be fantastic. If you say, well, this tract isn't really reflective of the greater, surrounding economic conditions because, maybe there's very little housing and a corner of it, drives up the median family income, substantially. We are amicable to situations like that. So that would be, I think my best advice would just be tell us a story about why, again, this still meets the spirit of the program. And then, of course, we're not just having you kind of throw these at us and keeping us in the dark. If you have something on your one pager that we want more information about or find interesting, we'll certainly reach out and say, hey, we thought this was compelling. Could you provide this or could you provide that? So that really is what we're looking for. In short, just a one pager, one, 2 pages with data kind of supporting how this meets the spirit of the program.
Excellent. So yeah, key deadline for your program, the 26th of June. So
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
folks who are interested already have that on their calendars and are working with their county on getting material together.
Yeah.
So
And
thanks for yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and if I leave y'all with anything, just we have the op zone email, we have my email. Please do not hesitate to use the state as a resource. I mean, this is quite frankly my favorite part of my job. I really love interacting with y'all and helping educate and being educated by y'all. So, if I leave y'all with anything at all, it's just please don't be a stranger. Any questions, I get a bunch of questions and I love answering them. So, please do not be afraid to reach out.
Excellent, excellent. And y'all have got his contact info there.
Yes, sir.
So
Go right
thank
back
you
to it.
again, Ray. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with everyone about that, and hopefully they'll take this and leverage that. I'll invite Michael to go ahead and share his screen. And so, Ray talked about the nominating process, which is step one, figuring out the location, get it designated. But as he mentioned, they kind of want a shovel ready. They want something with a plan. They want something that's got some energy. So Michael's going to talk to us a little bit about, lessons from the past opportunity zones and maybe how to leverage this current opportunity. So, it's post zone designation, but also as you're designating, you want to tell the story of where you're going with it. So I think what Michael's going to talk about will help us with some ideas for that.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Wes. That was a great overview. It was very interesting because I'm sure you're getting a chance to talk not only within the governor's office and within the state, but also to talk to Treasury at the federal level and understand what exactly they're looking for. So there's some things I learned from you that I didn't have privy information to, just kind of being on the outside as a researcher from that aspect. But this is uh, from my capstone from my master's program. Um, so this was my presentation for the APA National Conference. It's been adapted to our situation today to kind of follow up on what Wes and what Travis had talked about. So I just wanted to thank Wes for that because it was a great that was some great information that I
Happy
wish
to.
I had
I was
had.
actually just thinking, perhaps we could connect after this because I have questions I bet you could answer. So I'd love to continue, talking to you.
Well, then let's set it up. So anyways, that's great, Wes. I really do look forward to doing that. If anybody wants to, go ahead. It's on the next slide as well. That QR code, take a picture, or do whatever you do with a QR code, and pull up that information if you want. That's my website. It just has some general information on opportunity zones as well that could be helpful for you, but it's also it should be on the next slide. If I can get to the next slide. There we go. So as I said, this is from my master's degree. And as Travis had mentioned, I'm a planet or I'll tell you all this today. I just got a new job. I am actually going to be with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy doing landscape conservation with them. So excited about that and excited to use my experience with this for them. But so about opportunity zones. Um, so this is a definition from the federal government. Uh, but the reason why I wanted to show you this was not so that I could read you a definition, but I wanted to emphasize something that in Weststock, if you didn't capture, I just wanted to re-emphasize this part, is that this is a market-driven, place-based economic development tool. As planners, we can influence, we can help guide, but we don't have direct control over this. This is really up to what's going to be happening with investors in our community. And something that Wes mentioned as well, with the not having an opportunity zone 1.0, the thing that we didn't have was the data coming out of it originally. So I'm very excited to see that as a part of Opportunity Zones 2.0 and being able to capture that data. And that's what made my project particularly difficult. What was interesting was I was able to use, and we'll talk about this and look more into this, is the case studies. So instead of doing a lot of the data analytics and that sort of thing, I was able to step in and look at various case studies around the nation and see what that could tell us and how that could guide us into Opportunity Zone 2.0. So without planner guidance, what really happened was we didn't see the significant reduction in poverty, which was the original intent of Opportunity Zone 1.0. But as with many policies out there, the original intent and what actually goes on tend to diverge sometimes. So not any big criticism there, just to point out that that was the intention, and that with planner guidance, what we're hoping to do is create that scenario where we can start to see that reduction in poverty ultimately. So that's the goal. And we can see that here with that quote there with the no statistically significant reduction in poverty rates. That's across the US. And so when we look at this, I'm going to skip this one, but I did want to read from that one. Actually, let's skip that. So the problem with adapting slides sometimes. What I wanted to jump into was the potential of what's going on, because I think one of the areas that we haven't talked about, and I'm starting to see more and more language around it, is the energy and data centers investments. It's kind of been hidden under the radar for some time, but we're starting to get some speculation in terms of oil and gas alignment with the rural opportunity zone. But as we're starting to see price parity between between a kilowatt hour in your solar, wind, and other renewables between oil and gas development, I speculate, and I also have seen some really good articles that are saying, you're going to see some competition really coming up, even though all of the federal subsidies have been pulled back. So be watching out for some of those things is kind of the message there. It's not that you can necessarily do anything about it, but as you're looking at those, especially your rural opportunity zones, be looking for that energy development. And then the other big one is data centers. So I don't know if anybody's dealing with data centers in their area, We're in Pennsylvania. We are highly invested in this, and I know you all are as well, and I know especially in Utah, Arizona, that area, they're also highly invested. But um, just be, I've been working on some of these in the consulting world. We were looking at doing overlay zones for data centers. So these are just some things to just be cognizant of, is that it's not just going to be what Opportunity Zone 1 really ended up being a lot of real estate and residential development, that sort of thing. But as we see these incentives for rural opportunity zones, really looking at the oil, gas, data center, that type of deal. So just be on the watch it, and be considering it as you're developing your proposals to send to us. So what Opportunity Zone 1 taught us? I think Wes actually said this in his presentation, was that one of the problems was that if you were just designated, you didn't necessarily get the investment. And this was the big finding that I had from my case studies. Birmingham, Alabama is our big success story. Opportunity Alabama, we'll talk about a little bit more of what they did and how they were able to work and why that mattered. But Erie, PA, here in Pennsylvania, also had some strong, they had strong anchor institutions who were able to draw in investment as well. Dalton, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. One of their problems is that they just, again, because this is market driven, they didn't have a investable market that people wanted to invest in. So they did not draw in that investment. And as a result, even though they were designated, they just didn't get any investment. And then I used Buchanan, West Virginia. I went to school in Buchanan, West Virginia, West Virginia Wesleyan College. So I wanted to look at it since I had that personal connection. It's a rural college town, one hospital, so it's actually a bigger town in West Virginia having a hospital. Um, they did draw in one investment, but it was Opportunity Zone unrelated. Um, so they got a $35 million Prime 6 investment in sustainable wood products. I can tell you from my experience that the freshman dorms are right across the street from the railroad tracks where the split rail company was, and they would blow that whistle at midnight every night. Woke us up all the time. It was great. But they already had that split rail company in there. They had timber, they had all of that already existed. And so building a sustainable wood products company already made sense. But what they weren't able to do was draw in that Opportunity Zone investment into that project. And I think that's one of the big lessons for, especially in your rural places, but even in your medium-sized cities, is thinking through what are your economic clusters that already exist within your community and figuring out how that already kind of works together with those businesses, and how you can market that, and I hate to sell your community, but how you can market that to draw in other like businesses to to build off of what you already have. I think it's don't reinvent the wheel, just keep going with what you have and build off of that is part of the lesson. So that's a little bit of what we learned out of that whole process. And so then this is the planning matrix. It's on this slide and the next slide. So we're looking at our two medium-sized cities that I had mentioned, looking at 50,000 to 250,000 people. So the big thing, and we're going to talk about this in 3 slides from now, actually. But the big placemaking strategies, the community engagement, all of that's going to be happening. Hopefully you've already been doing this and that this is something that you can build off of. And so when you're sending your resources to Wes, this is something that you can talk about in your designation process. These are the parts that you want to highlight to be talking about now. And then as you're building that, you're also working with your local stakeholders, your community members to carry that through beyond that designation process. So we'll talk about that here a little bit more in a minute. But again, if you go to my website, you can take a look at this planning matrix on it has the whole thing on there. But what I want to tell you about it is please make it your own. This is the work that I did. If you don't like it, if you disagree with it, I don't even want to hear about it. Just make it better, make it your own. This is a resource for you to use, develop, and create something great out of. So the only thing I want to hear about it is yeah, yours sucked and I made it better, and this is how I made it better. And I'd be so thankful that you even looked at it. So, anyways, um, so again, the four strategy categories, four place types, your roadmap to investment ready census tracts. So take a look at this. There's something my wife told me I'm supposed to tell you. Um, so the one thing I do want to mention over here, this is directed at Wes actually, it was the state contributions. I really appreciated, it sounds like Texas is doing a great job right now with aligning state, federal, and local resources. So I would encourage you to talk to Wes about this part of it and learn what you can do, learn what's already happening and how your state, how Texas is already aligning with federal resources, and then look at your local community and start asking those questions of how can we align with that as well? What does that look like? I think that is a really important part of this whole piece, especially as you're talking about private business. Um, their big issue is time is money, right? So the longer that anything takes to get through permitting, anything like that, uh, you're slowing the process. Not you, but if we slow that process down, time is money, and development resources, especially if we've done the community engagement work up front, we've done the work to identify and map properties. If we've already done that work and we slow that down, um, I just want to check my time there. Uh, we just want to be able to accelerate that and hope that that work was already done so that we can get those projects off the ground for our community. So I'm going to run through this real quick, and then we can open it up to questions here in a minute. Okay. So again, that community engagement process is key. Then talking through community perspectives. So this is the EPA tool to build sustainability and equity into the whole opportunity process, actually. You can find it online. I can provide you resources if you want to look it up, but it's really about mobilizing stakeholders, defining goals, identifying assets. And if you're not familiar with the prospectus is just a financial document to show you what it is that you're investing in. If you have a 401k with any mutual funds or any other investments in it, you got a prospectus on that. And in the same way, if you're looking for somebody to invest in your community, you're just proposing, you're showing what your community has and how to invest in that. And it's a great resource. I'd encourage you to walk through the process. And then this other step here, the map inventory and infill properties. I love web mapping. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. But you can look through, start mapping the properties, the infill properties, areas that you want to get develop your city-owned sites, your brownfield sites, underutilized parcels. Where do you need investments? Just like Wes said, investors need shovel-ready projects. And this can be a resource on your website to show what is out there to pull investors in. So talk about that. So this was your to-do list starts now. Review your comprehensive plan, map properties for infill, build your stakeholder network, start a community prospectus, accelerate your permitting. I'm going to go back really quick for your build your stakeholder network. As planners, we're very used to networking with one another. I think the thing that Opportunity Zones makes us do as professionals is get outside of our comfort zone and start networking with the investment community a little bit, which feels very outside of the norm, I think, in what has been done maybe in the past. Um, Opportunity Alabama was a great model of that. They built a nonprofit that did a lot of stakeholder and community engagement. And then out of that, they built a for-profit company under the umbrella of the nonprofit company that was the investment company for opportunity funds, and then a CDFI as well. Very interesting process. I would highly recommend going to their website and kind of uh, looking at that a little bit more. And if you want to talk about it, you're always welcome to reach out to me and talk more about that. But I see that we're kind of short on time, so I wanted to go ahead and open it up for questions if anybody had any.
Michael, I have one for you. And this is something we're kind of just working on at the state level that I would just be really curious if you had any maybe case studies for us to look at and, kind of what you were just touching on. What do you see, successful states doing post award to, like you said, connect our communities with these investment firms, funds, and just kind of how do we continue to build on these? I know that's very open-ended and kind of a tricky question, but whatever you could shed on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I think that is that is the question, right? Is how do we connect state resources, local resources with the investment community and also with the community in general to be able to meet the needs of your community, um, to meet the needs of your community while also pulling in those investment dollars so that you can get the development that you need. It's a huge challenge. Um, I and it's something that I keep going over and over again. One of the challenges that I think one of the ways that I think we can meet this is is I think creating I really like the Opportunity Alabama model of having a nonprofit that guides the process because as planners, I hear too often, like, I can't do the, um, what is it? I can't do the community engagement. I can't do the stakeholder engagement. We're so overwhelmed with everything that we need to do already, that having these non-governmental organizations that are very interested in connecting all of this together um, was one of the was what created that scenario in Birmingham. So I think maybe looking for ways to invest in some of these um, other types of organizations that are going to do that work that may not be seen as a high priority for the for-profit community and for an underutilized or maybe overutilized, underfunded public sector. Yeah, brain just went out. Public sector there. So maybe it's pulling in those other areas of our communities to be able to do that work. I know, oh God, Opportunity Alabama was funded through actually local banks because of the community reinvestment. Um, right. So that was a part of what happened there. So maybe pulling some of those organizations together, finding who needs, what needs to be done, and then who can fund it is a big, I think a big challenge, but also potentially huge opportunity for connecting them together. All right, I
Awesome.
see.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. So yeah, we got just a quick comment in the chat from Lloyd. So Michael, you pointed out that it's possible with the rural incentive, there may be opportunity investment headed to like data centers and things like that. And Lloyd mentioned that we should expand analysis on data centers, looking at their impacts like noise and water use. Corpus Christi is obviously facing some challenges with water right now. So, I think it's good for planners to be aware of if you do have zone, what impacts may be, and get out ahead of that and planning for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as planners, some of the themes tying together, which I'll talked about, one of the priorities with the state is you want to hear the story of the shovel ready planning for those zones. And so, as Michael has mentioned, identifying stakeholders. I know many of us planners have done comprehensive plans for our cities or area plans, neighborhood plans, and you've talked to stakeholders, you've identified who's there. This may be a good opportunity to take that if you're in an opportunity zone and convey to the state, hey, we've got something going. We know who our stakeholders are, and we're looking to improve the community because it's been thought out. And of course, this is something as we continue planning. It's a long range program. For opportunity zones so they should be every 10 years happening. 10 years moves by quickly when we're talking about long range planning. So that's something to think about as well as leveraging that going forward. Those are some of my takeaways. But yeah, if we have any other quick questions from the group, folks can unmute and chat. We've got Michael's contact info there. Michael, if you don't mind, I'll pull up my
Go for it.
slide with both of you guys' info. I've put y'all's websites on here. So by the end of June, if you're not already engaged, get engaged with the state's program to nominate a zone, and then think about the long-term partnerships, opportunities. I've got Michael's website linked there. I'll make sure to get these slides out to folks. Michael, Ray, you don't mind if we share y'all's, do you?
No problem.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it looks like we're down on no questions left here in the chat, and I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I'll say thank you guys very much for taking time to chat about this. Obviously this is the beginning of this round. So hopefully our planners here have learned something. We'll take this back and do good work and come up with great opportunities to leverage these zones. And just a reminder for all our members, we're going to work on getting this certified as AICP continuing education credits. So hopefully everyone learned a lot today. We want to give you continuing education credits for that. We've got emails for attendees, so we'll make sure to send that out. And then don't forget about planning award nominations for the state conference. Those are due tomorrow. So first order of business is your planning nominations. Next is opportunity zones because June 5th is tomorrow. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that as well. But yeah, again, Ray, Michael, great job. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Michael, my fault.
No, you're fine, Wes. I would just say jinx, but
well, again,
Cool.
Thank you all so much for having
Great
me.
job.
And please reach out. Please do.
please do.
All right.
Wes, we're gonna talk. I'm about to send you an email.
I was about to send you an email. I'd love to. I absolutely would love to. Yeah, I already have mine drafted, actually.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks,
Well, thank you guys. Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you, Travis.
Abby, you good with everything? All right. Cool. You guys have a good weekend.
All right. Bye, everybody.